From the Dream defeating Vasily Lomachenko to retain his titles, to the fans deserving a fight between two of the biggest stars of this generation. This is why Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson needs to happen. After Haney's win against Loma, it's time to fight. I'm sure none of you have forgotten the Haney-Lomachenko fight. And given how close it was, most fans wanted a rematch between the two. Ultimately, as close as it was, a unanimous decision can't be considered too biased. And if not for the narrative built around Haney, this would have been a more universally accepted decision. You see, Haney doesn't get the respect he deserves from the media or the boxing community. The Dream amassed a 30-0 record in boxing after taking out one of the greatest boxers of the modern era. If it were any other fighter, they'd be hyped up so much more than he is. But the thing about combat sports is that if you keep winning, there's not much the rest of the community can do. They're forced to give you what you want, and that's exactly what seems likely to happen. Haney deserves the biggest fights, and if he doesn't get them after winning against the Ukrainian, then, let's be honest, he'll never get those big-name fights. More importantly, the biggest fight to make in the world of boxing right now is the Haney fight against Shakur Stevenson. Pitch those two bad boys together and let them fight it out for bragging rights. Who could possibly say no to that blockbuster? Add to that Haney's dominance in the lightweight division and all the titles that he holds, and it'd be the biggest fight to watch. Stevenson knows that this is the fight that'll officially make him the biggest name in the division. And as far as Haney is concerned, he may hold all the title, but a win over Stevenson is exactly what he needs to put his name on the map. Haney got a little bit lucky in 2020 when his interim champion status was turned into a full champion, without him having to fight it out against Lomachenko. But after finally getting in the ring against the clever and tactical Ukrainian a few years later, Haney came out the winner and has let the world know that he's not messing around. He deserved to be the full champion, and if there were doubts over his superiority, they've been blown away after his win against Loma. For Haney, it's very easy to pass up the chance to fight the likes of Sugar and Gervonta Davis. On paper, there isn't any need for him to let his legacy dangle. But if he thinks he's going to be remembered in the same breath as Floyd Mayweather Jr. or other boxers that ended their careers with perfect records, then he's very, very wrong. You need to beat the best to get there. And if he's concerned about leaving a legacy behind, then he needs to shut his critics up, who question how Haney ducks big fights. There's a growing belief that the Dream's spotless record is nothing but inflated. He's a fantastic talent, no doubt about it, but you've got to question some of the fighters he's been in the ring with. I get the appeal of having the perfect record, but what's the point if you're not going to test yourself against the very best fighters? Haney's been calculated in his approach so far in his career. This selective matchmaking doesn't fly if you want to be remembered as an all-time great. For Haney, this much is certainly true, and I'm sure he understands this on some level. The biggest compliment people pay him is comparing him to Floyd Mayweather Jr. But if you want to be compared to the GOATs, you've got to come out of your shell and take on the uncomfortable fights. As far as Stevenson is concerned, it doesn't get more uncomfortable than that. Stevenson is, for many analysts and boxers in the community right now, by far the best boxer in the lightweight division. This might be disrespectful to Haney, who has 10 more wins and also an unbeaten record to boast and has all the titles. But if he wants to shut those critics up, he needs to prove his mettle and showcase his abilities in the ring against Shakur. That's because Stevenson hasn't held back either. You see, the Haney-Loma fight divided everyone's opinion. Most people believe that the Ukrainians got robbed. Many disagreed with the judge's decision of handing that win to Haney, and Stevenson is one of them. Yeah, the former world champion has set his sights on Haney after watching his counterpart take on Lomachenko in 2023. Simply put, Shakur wasn't impressed with what he saw. He believes that Lomachenko should have run out the winner on the night, and he's vowed to avenge Loma by destroying Haney whenever they meet next. That's a big claim, but for the fans, it's amazing news. Stevenson couldn't be more open about what he wants. He's told the promoters to make it happen, and a fight against Haney would be the best way of settling their feud. In fact, he's also issued a warning to the Dream, telling him that he's definitely not on his level, and the high skill level that Stevenson himself possesses will prove to be too much for the undisputed lightweight champion. If all that wasn't enough, Sugar also implied that Devin might be scared of him, because it wasn't surprising to see Haney's camp leaving the ring right after their win over Lomachenko in 2023. For what it's worth, though, Sugar knows that he's a big draw, and if he wants to make that fight happen, it wouldn't be in the best interest of Haney to ignore those callouts either. I'd say he's got a lot riding on it. Think about it for a minute. He's hinted at a move up because he's struggled to make the weight at lightweight many times now. From a purely individual perspective, it'd make sense for Haney to move up and try to dominate the super lightweight after winning all there is to win in the lightweight division. At the same time, he's faced with a major dilemma too. Does he risk his legacy at this level and take that fight against Shakur Stevenson? He could potentially ask for Shakur to take on Gervonta Davis first. Then the winner will face him for the crown of being the undisputed champion. Something along those lines would also make a lot of sense and would spare him the hassle of dealing with Tank Camp's inevitable call for a fight, even if he takes the Shakur fight and wins. It's better to let Stevenson and Davis fight it out for a chance to crack Haney, but the prospect of Stevenson-Haney bout is just too massive to ignore. At the same time, though, changing weight classes rarely works out. I know he struggled to remain at this weight, having been there for well over half a decade. But if he wants to leave the division, he must do this by defeating the division's top prospect. And Stevenson himself is the one who fills that role. For what it's worth, the Dream has expressed an interest in a fight against Stevenson or Gervonta. As much as there's the narrative around Haney not taking big fights, it's also got a lot to do with other fighters not wanting to take on someone like Devin. No matter who he's fought, a 30-0 record isn't a joke. Right after his fight back in 2023 against Lomachenko, Haney was asked about his future at 135 and what fights made sense. For the first time in forever, it seems that Haney, despite being the undisputed champ, has the ability to call the shots. That's great news, and he's called out both Stevenson and Gervonta. Look, not to sound too greedy, but it makes perfect sense for Haney to go after Stevenson first. If Gervonta has a spotless record until after the Haney-Shakur fight, then the Tank can also take a shot against the Dream. And the fans deserve these fights, especially the Haney-Stevenson one. Boxing has been in a bit of a pickle since 2020. Thankfully, we got some good fights, with Tyson Fury going all out in his final one against Derek Chisora, and then the fabulous fight between Gervonta Davis and Ryan Garcia. The fact is, the lightweight division has never been more stacked than it is in this era. You've got some of the most talented boxers, all in the same weight class. And while the promoters have the chance to pitch them against one another, creating fights that'll be remembered for decades to come, they should do it. Fans definitely deserve a fight between the two brightest young talents in boxing, Stevenson, a former world champ, and the undisputed champion at lightweight, Devin Haney. It would be for bragging rights, for titles, and for everlasting legacies. Two unbeaten records going at one another. Nothing gets more exciting than that. It'll be a fight for the ages and will sell out like hotcakes. The trash talk has been going on for a long time already. All it needs is confirmation of a date and venue. So, from the fans deserving a fight of that magnitude, to the Dream defeating Vasily Lomachenko to assert himself as the undisputed champ, these were the reasons why Devin Haney versus Shakur Stevenson needed to happen.